Welcome to Eyes on Books. I'm John Kelsall, and this is my wife, Terry. Welcome today. We're going to be reviewing a book by William Kruger called The River We Remember. It's an interesting book. It takes you down many different avenues and very, very different venues. It's held in a small town called Jewel, Minnesota, which I wonder if the jewel has multi definitions or not. We'll find out when we get a chance to talk to the author. The storyline starts out with a bang. There's a murder. And then the rest of the book develops the innuendos, the complexities, the idiosyncrasies, the secrets that are all built into that murder and associated events.
It is a fascinating storyline.
Yes.
Or storylines.
Lines, yes. It's a story of a village told by all the individual secrets.
It is. Now, the author is an excellent storyteller.
Yes.
And this town of Jewel, Minnesota, as told from 1958,
That's right.
which is post-World War II, is has an interesting take to it. It starts out, like you said, with a bang, but we're not sure if it's a murder or if it's a suicide. So the very, very first part of this book starts out with this dead body in this river. And you're like, as the reader, you're taken on this journey with this gentleman who is a very prominent member of the community who is found dead in this river. And you say, oh my God, okay, strong beginning of this book. And you say, I'm going to continue reading.
And as you said, it's post-World War II, so it brings in all of the emotional and physical traumas and tribulations that many of the members of the Jewel experience, including the sheriff.
Who served in the military. Mm-hmm. And several members of the community did serve in the military at the time. Well, during the war.
Yes. And
brought back their experiences with them.
Yes. And there was an American Indian who was well regarded as an excellent veteran, but he brought back a Japanese wife, which just compounded all of the rumors and innuendos and accusations and finger pointing and everything that goes along with it. So it was an interesting oops.
Yes, it was an interesting oops. So you have several different characters, well, many different characters in this story. And as you go on this journey with the author, and you meet all these different characters, and you find out all their different stories.
And secrets.
And secrets.
And there's a lot of them.
There are. You needed a certain amount of patience as the reader.
Yes.
To get into their stories and travel these journeys with the different populations. And we can't give away a lot of the storylines because it really is quite fascinating how all these have been woven together.
Story of a town through the people.
It is very well put. But it takes some patience. It really does take some patience to learn how all of it is put together. And all of their secrets, and they slowly come out and emerge. And I'm telling you what, they really just go poof, and they pop up slowly.
Yeah, I know. They come out of nowhere almost.
And they just really some of them took me by surprise.
Most of them took me by surprise. I'm going, whoa.
So as you make your way through this story, and I have a lot of questions for the author, because as you said, Jewel, Minnesota is a real place.
It's a real place, yes.
But did he pick this particular town
Name.
because was there a play on words?
Yes, that's my question. I mean, is it a perfect jewel or an imperfect jewel or both? And I think he's got both.
Because his characters, some were as sweet and wonderful as could be,
Yeah.
and some were so imperfectly, sort of perfect, but not so much.
Yeah.
And the reader might really go on this journey with the author, and they might really enjoy this ride.
Yeah. It is a ride, that's for sure. That's a ride, especially when he transitions from one character to another and then exposes, I guess, all of the innuendos and secrets and side things that happen to go on with some of the characters.
And yet they all come together.
They all come together. One of the parts that I had a little difficulty with is transitioning from one character to another. You know, where does one character totally end and the next character really begin, because it was so smoothly written. Lyricism was a word that was used by some of the reviewers as to the smoothness of his writing.
Read that same review. I don't know if I fully agree with that word.
I knew you knew.
Lyricism, but it was very smoothly written.
Yes.
I will agree with that.
Yes.
And
It pulled you in.
I don't know if the characters have to end and start.
Yeah, it was so smooth that it wasn't necessarily a clear end and a clear beginning.
And
But they were tied together. Even though they were completely separate storylines and character development, his transition from one to the other was so smooth, you kind of got lost in what's really going on.
And there was one character, I must tell you, I absolutely fell in love with one character. His development, you just couldn't help but respect this one character. He was a veteran. He was Native American. He did all that he could to help others, but people were pointing their finger at him. There was so much prejudice
And he
towards him.
And he did as much as he could to protect one person in particular.
Yes.
He wouldn't answer any questions. He wouldn't point fingers. He was silent when he was challenged in many cases that would exonerate him, but he refused to do that. He was protecting this one person.
Yes. So this one body that started out as a murder, maybe suicide, was finally resolved, and the sheriff had to be involved in it. But and there was not just one dead one dead body.
There were two,
and
which I did not expect at all. All
Yeah,
of
I
a sudden, bam! Here's this second murder.
so it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. It's not a fast read.
Yes.
You really have to put your mind to it for the
Yes.
character development.
Yeah.
But you're going to
You're going to be rewarded if you pay attention.
Yeah, it's a really enjoyable read.
Yes.
Very enjoyable read. Do you think so?
Yes. I had difficulty putting it down at times.
Okay. I have to agree.
Well, in just a minute, we're going to have the author with us, so stay with us. Welcome, Kent. Glad to have you with us, the author of The River We Remember. I have a question for you.
Fire away.
Jewel. Was that an intentional choice of a town name, or was that intended to have multiple connotations?
I missed the first part. Was it the town of Jewel you were asking about?
Yes, the name. Why did you choose the word jewel for this book? Because I read it as the town is a jewel, the people are a jewel. Some jewels are imperfect, some are perfect. So I'm reading into the name Jewel. I'm wondering if that was an intention on your part or not.
Well, I really like your explanation of it.
Use it if it's of any value.
There we go. No, I think part of the reason for choosing that name was simply that, if you grow up in a small town, as I did, I grew up in a number of small towns, you think of them as jewels. You know them well, you know why they sparkle, you know their value, and so it seemed like an appropriate name. But I like how you point out that all jewels have flaws.
Well, you got many secrets in the book, that's for sure. So it's well chosen.
It was a pleasure reading your book.
Yes.
I loved the life of the sheriff.
There we talk about flawed jewels, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Many
yes.
little secret little holes that he had was interesting.
And the woman who ran the cafe, another flawed jewel. Mm-hmm. It was happening all over the town, what was going on. And the prominent citizen whose body was found in the river, everybody had something going on. It was absolutely amazing. So how on earth do you keep all of your plot lines going on?
Yeah.
And rotating?
And smoothly transitioning from one to the other. That was what really impressed me.
Well, we've got several things to talk about here. Let's sort them out.
Okay,
Let's
go
talk about
ahead.
characters first. It pleases me that you found the characters compelling enough to stay with them as they developed. When I used to teach creative writing, what I would tell my students is that when you're introducing characters in your work, think of them like the neighbors across the new neighbors who moved in across the fence next door to you. You don't get to know them all at once. You get to know them gradually as they slowly trust you and begin to reveal themselves to you. You learn their histories. If you really get close, you begin to learn the secrets that they carry, like all of us do. So I wanted very much to take my time in revealing the characters, because the more we know about the characters in the story, the more we realize that they have dark secrets, secrets that they are so afraid to reveal to anyone. And I think that in that they're probably like most of us. So the fact that you stayed with the story as all of these characters revealed themselves to me pleases me as a storyteller.
Oh, good.
In terms of keeping the plot lines straight, moving hopefully seamlessly from one to the I've been a storyteller for a very long time. So I know pretty well how to make a story work, and particularly when every good story is a tapestry. There are all kinds of threads
well put.
being woven into the story, and if you don't do it seamlessly, it's way too clunky for a reader to want to stay with. So you have to make your transitions as smooth as possible. And the thing about storytelling, it's all about suspense. You don't have to put people in jeopardy to create suspense. You can often create a situation where you leave a question unanswered or a conflict unresolved or whatever. And if you look at the novel, The River We Remember, very often transitioning from one storyline to another, I would leave a question unanswered or a conflict unresolved so that the reader is still with me on that as I introduce a new element of the story. But then when I go back, they're going, oh, here we go again. That kind of, at least that's what I hope happens in the way that I tell my stories.
I have a question about one of your characters that Terry absolutely fell in love with, Noah. He is an American Indian, and I figured that you included him because of the proximity to Minnesota and the Indian tribes up in that arena and that area. Yes, no?
Yeah, if for anyone out there who's not familiar with my body of work, for a very long time I was best known as the author of the, I love saying this, New York Times best-selling Cork O'Connor mystery series, which is set up in the Great North Woods of Minnesota. My protagonist in that series is a man of mixed heritage. He's part Irish-American and he's part Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, which is the largest tribal affiliation we have in northern Minnesota. When I set my work in southern Minnesota, we have a different tribal majority down there, the Dakota. And the history of the Dakota and the white population who came, settled there, stole their land essentially, is so tragically mixed that it's difficult for me to write a story in southern Minnesota without talking about that tragic history that both the white population and the native population share.
Interesting. I have one other question about Noah, who was obviously an honored veteran coming back from World War II. Why did you choose to have him bring back, especially after World War II, a Japanese wife?
That was not an uncommon thing after World War II, nor was it an uncommon thing, for example, after the Korean War to come home with a Korean wife if you were someone who had served in the military overseas. It was not a popular thing to do, of course, because the prejudice against, first of all, the Japanese for all of the travesties of World War II and the Korean War, because you brought home an Asian wife, somebody who's so very different from the vast population here in the United States. And one of the things that the River We Remember is all about wounding, how life wounds us in so many ways. And one of the ways that life wounds us is through prejudice. We wound those against whom we hold prejudice, and we wound ourselves when we act out of ideas that are so based on so many things that are untrue. And so I had Noah Bluestone bring a Japanese wife home because it simply compounded the whole question of racial prejudice.
The women in the story, the mother, Marta, who the strength, the inner strength she had, it was quite remarkable. I just had a friend who passed with ALS, and she was still able to muster the strength that she was able to muster. And I'm not going to give anything away, but I loved the way she was able to handle her situation. And it just, I just loved her character.
You know, I'm really, Terry, happy to hear that. Marta is certainly a strong woman when you, in the end, understand everything that she's gone through. There are a number of strong women in this book. You mentioned Angie Madison, who runs the Wagon Wheel Cafe.
Yes.
A dynamic character,
And her
wonderfully
past,
powerful, compelling
unbelievable.
character. One of my favorite characters in the whole book is Charlie Bauer, the attorney
yeah.
who takes on Noah Bluestone's defense. You know, I have no idea where she came from. She was just kind of a blessing that came to me as a storyteller. But I loved how Charlie participated in this story and the strength that she brought with it. I love the fact that she is who she is, and the hell with what people think of her.
Oh, she was incredible.
Yes.
I just fell in love with her character
Yeah, me
as
too.
well.
Me too.
It was like, where did she come from? Where is she going? And who cares? But
She's humoristic elegance, I guess. I'm not saying this well, but she had an elegance that drew me to her and wanted more of the character.
I wanted to smoke a cigar next to her. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I wanted to be in her presence. You know?
You know, I love the fact that we're talking about character here because, you know, story is really all about character. When I taught creative writing, I tried to pound into my students' head the idea that a good story isn't really about what happens, it's about who it happens to. And so in the River We Remember, I tried to create a whole series of strong characters who could carry the story on their shoulders. So while the story is compelling, and I hope that the mystery at the heart of it keeps readers guessing for a very long time, it's really the characters that pull them through the story.
And
I agree.
that river just kept on flowing. It just kept on flowing through 3 different changing lives. It just kept going. It didn't.
Which leads to how did you come up with the title?
Well, there's an interesting story there. The title, when I sent the manuscript to my editor at Simon & Schuster, was Alabaster, after the Alabaster River. And I thought it was kind of evocative of the whitewash that sometimes we try to do when we're looking at our histories, particularly those parts of our histories that we don't want to acknowledge, which is very true in southern Minnesota, where the Native Americans are concerned. But my editor, when he read the manuscript, said, "I love the story. I hate your title." It just doesn't. It says nothing to me. So when he shot me that email, I hopped on my bike, grumbling to myself, and I went out for a very long bike ride, trying to, what do I? If I'm not going to call it Alabaster, what do I call it? And when I came back from that bike ride, I had the title, The River We Remember. And he was absolutely right. It's such a better title for the story. And if you're not quite sure what the title means, I really pretty much tell you exactly what it means in the epilogue of the book.
Wow.
Well, I used the Alabaster River as a metaphor for all of those things that tie us together in community. It ties the past, the present, and points toward the future. It combines the land itself with the population there. If you look at all of the action, it pretty much takes place within sight of the alabaster, and sometimes because of the alabaster. I love using rivers in my stories because rivers can be metaphors for so many things. And I think in this, one of the major metaphors that the river stands for is our journey to forgiveness, which is, I think, how the wounds that we deliver to one another and that we ourselves deliver finally are healed.
Wow. Wow.
Well, water is very healing anyway.
You have all kinds of ideas, things that you hope you have woven into the story that might resonate with readers. Readers never pick up everything. That's okay. Or sometimes they pick up things you never intended. or things that are there, maybe that you put in unconsciously, but in fact are entirely appropriate for the story and the meaning you were trying to give it.
What do you want your reader to remember most about this book?
You know, the book, as I indicated earlier, the book really is all about wounding and healing. Here's where the story came from. In the early 1940s, my father graduated from high school and enlisted immediately in the military and marched off to Europe to fight in World War II. He was just a kid. He was 18 years old. He came back many years later, a man deeply wounded in body and in spirit by what the war had done to him. I recognize now that he was probably suffering from PTSD, but nobody talked about that back then, or if they did, they called it shell shock or battle fatigue. And he was so like the friends of my father, the fathers of my friends, guys who, like my dad, had fought in World War II or Korea. And they all went away boys, you know, kids. Many of them not even shaving yet. And they came back men deeply wounded by the horrors that they had seen and the horrors that they had been a part of. And all my life I've wondered, how could anybody heal from that kind of wounding? And what about the people they left behind, the ones who loved them, their wives, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, people who I'm sure were praying for them desperately while their loved ones were away fighting in the war, and maybe who in the end lost them on the battlefield? How did they heal from their wounds? How did anybody find a way to heal? And I hope at the end of the story I have offered the possibility of healing, which is all about forgiveness. Healing begins when we forgive the others for the wounds that they've delivered to us, and when we forgive ourselves for the wounds that we have delivered to others. And if they take that with them, I'd be pretty happy.
Wow.
Beautiful thought.
Well, you got me thinking a whole lot more now. Anyway, I
Go
just
ahead.
got the signal that we're supposed to wrap this up, but I don't want to. But anyway, Kent, thank you so much for, number one, writing the book. Number two, taking the time to come and enlighten us with your author thoughts. And again, we encourage, you have some other book, The Tender Land is also behind you there. How many books have you written?
23 at the moment. Number 24 is coming out at the end of the summer. It's number 20 in my Corp O'Connor series.
Wow. Wow. Well, anyway, thank you so much for writing the book. Thank you so much for getting up this morning and spending the time with us here and filling us in from your perspective, which I know I learned a lot. And
Good.
And I encourage anybody who's listening to this to go and get a copy of the book and go on an incredible journey.
It's always a pleasure to talk about myself and my work. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching another edition of Eyes on Books. We look forward to seeing you again next month.